It's asking about positions and rotation. So, are your players playing all different positions during the game, or are they playing on their best positions only? So, for instance, he's given an example of an under 15 playing as a striker. Would you put him as or her as a centre back or a CDM?
So I think the big thing for us, I think the big thing was in terms of it's all age specific. It's age specific. So if I've got, let's use U15 for the example that you've just used. If they're playing as a striker, if that's their position, so to speak, great. But we wanted our players to understand at least 2 or 3 different positions. So no, we wouldn't play our striker as a 6 or a centre back. Like we probably wouldn't do that unless that was, you know, a role that, you know, they needed to play, or maybe the provincial team, which would be the equivalent to the, I suppose it wouldn't be your national team, but your maybe a higher academy. So say, for example, Manchester City are watching one of our players and the TD says to me, listen, I'd like to see little Johnny play as a fullback. Now, if he's a striker, if I can explain that reasoning as to why I want him to play there, because that's happened a few times, then that might help too. But we wouldn't go as far as putting a striker at centre back and stuff like that. It'd have to be, you know, relatable. So a striker probably plays a 7 or 11. We'd probably try and get them to adapt in that position, maybe as a 10. If I was a box-to-box midfielder in 8, I may even try and get them to play as a 6 or a centre back, just for variety and also just to mix it up. So I think the skill sets were a big part of why we did it, and I think if I can improve your skill sets as a player, it's actually going to make you a more rounded player in the position you probably want to play longer term.
Yep, brilliant. And with their ages as they developed and got older, did you, as a club, start to provide them with more kind of different technical challenges, tactical challenges? Did it get more complex as they aged?
Yeah, for sure. So I think the big thing was, I spoke a little bit about the U8s to U10s, U12s. When you're breaking up to like U15, 16, 17, 18, whatever that be, you're obviously talking a lot more about the tactical side of the game. If you know much about North American football, soccer, it would be over there. If you know much about that kind of stuff, guys, I think the big thing is there's a lot of physical athletes. There's lots of athletes. There's some tremendous athletes within the country. There's some pretty decent technicians as well. But the big downfall for the players is their just game understanding. So we tried to really hammer home game understanding. And as you'll know, that's something that you can't develop overnight. To understand the game, you've got to watch plenty of football and you've got to ask lots of questions. And you've got to be willing to take in that information too. So as the older age groups got, moved on, we were trying to develop players because we wanted them to go and play college football. We were developing players because we wanted them to go to try out in Europe and stuff like that. Did that happen? Yeah, once or twice. But success to us would have been will be over the next couple of years. You'll see whether that happens or not, and that bears fruit. But yeah, a lot more. There'll be obviously a lot more detail with those older age groups for sure.
And just from like almost an attitude point of view, how did you guys as a club find it with players who are maybe coming to play soccer more from a recreational standpoint? They just want to kind of be social and active, whereas there's others, I'm sure you've been had the privilege of managing, who are more kind of geared towards elite. They want to make it, they want to have a career, like you just said, they want to push on to college. So what was the kind of the challenges that you found balancing those types of players?
It's a good question. If I'm being honest with stuff like that, we would have it's completely different to England in the fact that you'd have a squad of, there's different levels. You've got your recreational, if you will, and then above recreational will be kind of your regional team, and then your regional team, the next level will be your academy, if you will, in the UK. So there's 3 kind of tiers. The recreational players, you would hope 1 or 2 would move up to regional. You'd hope 1 or 2 would move up from regional up to the academy level, if you will. But I think the big thing within these, the recreational players is if they show that desire and determination of want to learn, we're more than happy to work with them at the next level up. Like, that's no issue. It's the players that are just there because mum or dad are paying X amount of money to have you. That's where I kind of draw the line, because I think if you want to be at the session and you're driving the car, not literally driving the car, so to speak, but if you get my drift, if you're driving it and making sure you're driving that journey, so to speak, then regardless of your ability, I believe, and this is just one of my beliefs, is that I hope I can improve anybody. So whether you and me we have 2 sessions a week, even at your age, I'd like to think you develop in a month's time in some form, whether it's minor or not. I think we can develop anybody. I do believe that. People are dead set against it, but that's just my opinion. And I think you can do that. So if we do get a player who's not the best player, but they've got a great attitude, give me 11 of them, because they're the players that I want. Again, it's the issue over that side of the world is it's pay to play. So there's that kind of, you're then dealing with almost the boardroom side of things, because you've got to fund a club to make a club run. So I understand that side too, but I'm football. So I want the footballer first. That's what I want. So it can be quite difficult to communicate that. But I think we had quite a clear communication stream. So
yeah, brilliant. And like linking in with that, with the idea of game awareness, and you were saying like it's a bit of a challenge out there because it's not the main sport. And you're trying to create this culture where people want to be, able to play in different positions, etc. What sort of, I don't know, like things were you guys doing as a club to help them learn the game, help them see the game? I mean, you touched on video, but like, what other things were you guys doing?
So we put on tactical sessions, online sessions on a weekly basis that you could sign up to and just attend. So, I mean, that was definitely one way, and we'd have our kind of higher qualified coaches delivering stuff like that, and I'd jump on them too. We would do that. We'd also just set, as I say, tasks for the kids, go and watch this game and then feedback to us with X, Y, and Z. Watch a player who plays in your position. I think it's now becoming more accessible to watch football over in Canada, but it's a lot more than it was. But I'm talking like 5 or 6 years ago, it definitely wasn't accessible as it is now. It's so easy to get games. So I think for them, the challenge was attend these tactical sessions and understand the game, understand the reasons why we're doing this and why we're asking you to do this, but also go and watch the game. I mean, you don't even have to watch 90 minutes. Like we were saying to the kids, listen, like I get restless watching 90 minutes. I have to go and make a cup of tea or something, especially being an Everton fan. I don't want to watch 90 minutes. So these kids that can't sit and watch 90 minutes, go onto YouTube, and there's some social media pages like Instagram. You can watch highlights and clips. Just watch something, like at least watch bits, dedicate 15 minutes a day just to watching, because if you watch, hopefully you can see trends and habits and then hopefully copy, if anything. That was kind of what we were aiming for.
And just a question about the kind of generation that we're in, with like the TikTok generation and our attention spans. I mean, me and you are in our 30s, and I'm sure our attention spans have decreased over the last 10 years. But how have you found that as a coach, trying to communicate your ideas and keep people engaged and wanting to learn, whilst, like I said, in the context of the environment, we're losing attention?
Do you know what? It's a good question. I don't like doing this, but I suppose you have to in a way. You have to come down to their level. I'll give you an example. Kids these days play a lot of FIFA. So I think we tried to implement FIFA in sort of positions like we call it 6, but the kid would call it a CDM. So I'm fine with that. Like I generally, if that's how they understand it, I can get on board with that. And you've almost got to kind of get to their level a little bit. Years and years ago, that obviously wouldn't have been acceptable, as I'm sure we know. But almost you've got a link to stuff like that. You're right. The TikTok stuff, like even especially some of the female teams we had, they'd be more concerned about doing a TikTok before training, and it drives me absolutely nuts. But if they can get that done within a couple of minutes and then come and train and be fully focused on the training session, I'm going to have to hold my hands up and say it is what it is, because that's the day and age that we're in. I cannot stand the stuff. I genuinely can't. But I'm going to have to learn to live with it, because if I'm going to work in football for the rest of my life, these issues are going to become more prevalent, aren't they? So yeah.
Fair play. All right, question here from I think it's Andrea. Do you have in your technical team an analyst or someone who's in charge to help you on the growing of some important tactical or technical aspects after the match or training?
It's a great question, and as we were building the club, I mean, when I got into the club, it was relatively small in terms of there was only like two full-time members of staff. And kind of up until last month, we had, I want to say, about 4 or 5 full-time members of staff, lots of part-time members of staff. So this was a role that was next on the hit list, to be honest. We had like the VO camera stuff, so we were doing our own analysis, but that was for sure next on the hit list. And I think there's so much value in this sort of stuff. just for player development, even coach development, video in the session and watching it back yourself. I've never been so distraught when I've watched myself back and I'm like, did I really say that? Or what was I even thinking? It's actually a great tool for us as coaches, not just for the players. But the answer to the question is, we didn't have an analyst. I did a lot of it myself just through experience, and I had another one of our coaches do it. But I would have loved to have had one, because I know that we would have done that. But again, the funding side of things comes into play. But we obviously had analysts at Man City, and it was almost, you took it for granted. The next, your game was on a Saturday afternoon, and then on Sunday morning, Kiri, our analyst, would have you'd send them like a list of 4 or 5 things, and on Sunday morning you'd have those 4 or 5 things cut up, perfect timing, and then you could assess them. And it's just a different level. It genuinely is a different level. But with all these things comes the kind of financial package, doesn't it? But listen, I'd have loved to have had one, because it would have taken the club from here to here, like, without a doubt.
For sure. Well, you mentioned like VO and services like this. I think now technology is becoming more prevalent and more affordable, I think. So
it's more accessible, isn't it? It is more accessible,
sure.
Yeah.
And with the fact that I think VO is like AI powered, isn't it? So it takes out the cost of having someone be there and record it. So I think as we go on, I think not the role of the analysis will be redundant, but it will change into someone who's a bit more specialized in the coaching aspect.
Definitely. And I think, like, I was banging on about this VO camera for months and months, trying to get us one at our club, and now we've got one. It's going to be so beneficial, and I think the people we've obviously managed to get this camera. I think they're going to see in the next 6 to 12 months the developments of certain players and coaches just because of it. But you're right. For me, though, I think the quality, like an analyst, again, we had a guy called Kyria at Man City. He was like, you could practice for years and years, you'd never get to his level. So I still think there's obviously a niche for these people, because they're phenomenal at what they do, and they're actually quite quick at what they do. A VO camera is still quite difficult to cut and get the perfect bits. So I think there still will be I hope there's still going to be a role for people like that, because it's a vital role, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Going into coaching culture, you and your fellow staff members, what sort of things did you guys do to help each other along the way? I know you touched a lot of it in the presentation, but like maybe informal things that you guys did.
Honesty, to be honest, honesty was the first thing that we laid out. So like I wanted to know your opinion of this or that, and you should want my opinion of this and that. There should be no, oh, you're my boss. Yes sir, please sir, 3 bags full sir. Like that's not going to create an environment or culture, because you're at some stage not going to want to be a part of that. Like that's a fact. So I think the open forum honesty was key. And listen, there's going to be times where we have a disagreement, but it's football. Of course we're going to disagree. I mean, I'll give you an example. Relatively recently on the field, and the coaches set up the session, explain what they're going to do, but I couldn't visualize what they wanted to do, and there was a pointless pass that was going to be played in there that you wouldn't play in a game. So I questioned it, and we were having a bit of an argument about it. So we went away, quick sip of water, put our boots on, and we kind of went, listen, let's sort this out and let's fix it so it's beneficial for the players and stuff like that. Yeah. It's not an argument for any old sake. It's for the benefit of the players. So you've got to have that honest rapport. I think people are too scared to step up at times and do stuff like that. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, I think that's a great thing that you said there. Like it's almost like dropping off the ego and just being open to any feedback, so long as you say, it's with the sole intention of making yourself better, but more so the players. So if that's the case, then we should always be open to that.
I saw it the other day. I was out on the grass a couple of days ago, and I'm having a chat with a couple of coaches. I'm watching a session, and there's 2 coaches having an argument. But wow. At the end, they're chatting to me and they're saying, like, Paul, sorry for that. And I was like, no, did you get your outcome? Yeah, they did. Well, it's no issue then. That again, it's football. Don't take it personal. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah. Perfect. All right. So a few just like one words that I underlined while you were talking in your presentation, and one of the ones was about accountability. So we touched on it with the players, and you're kind of trying to come to their level. But what other ways have you found to make players accountable for their behaviors, especially like not necessarily just in games, but like away from the pitch and away from training?
I think as soon as you put the club badge on, I think regardless of whether you're at training or not at training, you're now representing the club. So I think that was a message that we wanted to get across to the players. You're wearing the club logo. You're now representing them. Whether you're walking home from school and you've got the club bag on your backpack, the logo there, or whether you go in the shop, whatever you do, you're representing the club. So you need to hold yourself accountable in that respect. You need to be respectful. You need to live. The players need to live by those key tag words. You know, if we meet you as a player, you're a respectful player. We know that. We want these words, these key words, to link to you as a player. So I think the big thing was, again, we talked about the honesty with the coaches, but there was honesty with the players. You know, you've got to keep your standards high. I think standards on and off the field were vital for us. Even something as small as you turning up to training without your water bottle. Like you'd get a hammering for that. Like you genuinely, if we did that back in our day as kids, you know, if you didn't bring your water bottle, the coach would make you run like 10 laps or something. Like obviously we wouldn't do that now because we'd maybe do 5 laps. But you know what I mean? It's little things like that. It's the little details I find, because the big details they should have covered. It's the little fine details. It's the forgetting something. It's the being on time. Like the importance of these things, like a huge. Arsenal the other day, Aubameyang turned up late from training to the game, so he got dropped, and people were moaning about it. I'm like, you're having a laugh, aren't you? He turned up late. He's the captain. Of course, he got dropped. But this day and age is almost, you can't do that.
Yeah.
You can't do that. Well, hang on. Let's strip it back a little bit. You know, this is how everyone should be treated, not just the first team players, the players at the academy. This is, if you're late, you know, you're held accountable for being late. Listen, if it's your parents' fault, then it's your parents' fault. But you know, if you kind of get me drift, I think the big thing is these players have got to recognise that it's not just about on the field. There's so much more wrap around, isn't there?
Yeah, for sure.
So hopefully that answers.
No, brilliant. Yeah. Guys, if you've got any last comments or questions, let us know, but we'll start bringing this in. Parents, Liam, what have you found in your experiences trying to educate them, trying to get them on board with how you guys play? Because obviously you're playing in a certain way that's going to invite pressure. There's going to be goals conceded. There might not be goals scored that they want. So how has that kind of educational process, that onboarding process, been with the parents?
From the start, difficult, but you've got to be transparent. I think you've got to be transparent with the message you're giving them, and you've got to follow through with that message. So it'd be no use me saying one thing and then 6 months down the line changing my view. I think I kind of stuck to my guns. This is how we want to play. It might not work at the start, but you've got to trust the process, and by trusting the process, you will see it bear fruit. Because you know, the method of play and the style of play is, I've been in an environment where we've played like that, granted with more talented players, but this is no different. We're just going to educate you, and you're going to learn a lot more in a less amount of time. So I think we held a lot more kind of educational classes, but I like the individual just chats with parents, to be honest. I like grabbing a coffee with a parent and just finding out, you know, what they thought. And I think parents like you valuing stuff like that. So if there's any advice I could give the guys on the call is, you know, make the parents feel valued, because, you know, they should be. We go on about, you know, a lot of the time, our parents are crazy. They don't know anything about the game, this and this. To some extent, that's true. But then there's the flip coin of, there are actually some really good parents who want to get on board with what you do. So even in my role, it was, I'll go and grab a coffee with this dad today or this mum today, and we'll chat about what they like about the program and maybe things that they want to see improved. And can I promise that we'll improve it? I can't, but I promise we'll try. Yeah. And if it's the information that we can change, then for sure we'll do it. So I think just being, again, transparent and open with these. Listen, the people at the end of the day, they drop their son or daughter off. You're dealing with their prized possession. I mean, so you better do a good job with them, because otherwise, you know, it's going to cause problems for you in the long run. So you've got to think about that. Again, they're all human beings at the end of the day. So it's understandable. Are you going to get some crazy parents along the way? 100%. but listen, there's going to be a stage where, unfortunately, this isn't a program for you. Thanks, but no thanks. See you soon. There's no love lost. It's just business.
Yep.
It is what it is. So I think that's a big thing. But I just wanted to touch really quickly on the language side of things. So we're talking about the style of play there. Especially in North America, it's a lot of it's kind of, if I can run faster than you, then I'm going to beat you. That's kind of, there's not much technical kind of detail given in the session. So it was really interesting to try and, why are we passing it to this side? Why are we completing 18 passes, 16? But why are we looking after the ball? Why aren't we just booting it long? Because you can get up the field faster by doing that, and trying to educate them that way was very difficult. And did they all get it? Of course they didn't. Did some get it? Yeah. And I hope that the some that did get it, would spread the word a little bit like wildfire. I think if you've got kind of good people on board with you, they will spread the message. So
yeah, interesting. It's like almost like the passionate few believers that you need to educate the others, because you can't get through to those guys, but the others can. That do.
It's so true. They've got so many examples. I can give you a quick one where, we had a coach who we had him for the first month. I just knew straight away, I'm not going to get on with this guy. He's not. And I just knew, just because he just go against everything you said and you just had no interest. So it was kind of, I liked him because he's actually a really good coach, but he just didn't do anything that we were saying. He didn't get on board with anything that we were doing. He just kind of fobbed us off a little bit. So I didn't want to lose him, but it was going to be a point where I'm going to have to cut ties. So a couple of our younger coaches knew him well, so I got them on board to kind of spread the word. And to be fair to him, we turned him round, and he's still with the club now, and he's actually doing a really good job. So you can change people if they want to be changed. I think that's the key bit. If they want to change. But
yeah. Listen, key distinction. All right, Liam. Thank you, mate. Brilliant. Really, really good stuff. Really good thinking points for us all. I think whatever level, whether we're just starting out or we're getting towards that UEFA A level 5 sort of level, level 4. Sorry. There's definite things that we can pluck out from and sort of introspectively ask ourselves. So really appreciate your time. Thanks.
No problem at all. And like I said, if anyone needs anything, accessible, drop me an email or drop me a line on Twitter, and I'll get in touch with you, and we'll kind of go from there. Willing to help as much as I can.
Perfect, excellent. And guys, all of you guys who have stayed to the end, thank you so much for taking the time out today. And hopefully you picked up some things, like we said, that you can apply in your environments. And Coach, I'll leave you with one last sort of parting bit of advice. What's the one type of main thing that you'd like coaches to go away and try and think about more deeply from what you said with us?
I think we talked about the culture and the environment. So I think I'd like you to go away and think about, how much detail needs to be put into that. Because like I said at the start, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. A lot of the stuff I've mentioned, I'm sure you've all heard before, but it's just different context and different experiences on my part that have worked in some cases and haven't worked in other cases. So I think just going away and actually thinking about, the detail that goes into these two things. And like I said before, the before, the during, and the afterwards sessions, there are 3 parts to a session. And if you want to develop as a coach, you can't just do 1 or 2 of the things. You've got to do all 3. You've got to plan it, you've got to do it, and you've got to review it. Like I've learned that the hard way over the years, and actually it makes you a better coach. So I think that would be the kind of thing to finish on.